Welcome back to Adulting and Money. If you recall, we've been building a spreadsheet that covers how to pay your bills in a manner that works for you and your spouse especially. This can be adapted to single people, roommates, etc. But this is for you to have a much better relationship with your money, and just can take a lot of stress out of any relationship you have with anyone where you have personal dealings with them as well as a financial relationship. If you recall, what we started with was determining the difference between a covenant relationship and a consumer relationship, established the difference between those with the percentages per bill, per income, etc. And we've got those in our spreadsheet so far. If you look at the screen behind me, you'll see that we've got our income for James and Mary and the percentages for those. We have all the joint bills figured out. We have the envelopes figured out. And if you go back to the previous video, see where we calculated the percentages for those. The purpose for this video is going to be to go over your individual bills. Now you want to plug yours in while I'm doing this, so instead of me plugging in James and Mary's, you want to plug in yours and your significant others. What you want to have is things like your individual car payment, your individual cell phone payment, not the plan, that's a bill. We'll cover that in a minute. And you want to cover other things like car insurance that you're paying above like normal minimal coverage, any student loans you might have, your gas expenses, and we'll cover a couple oddball things that go with that. First thing I want to cover is car insurance. That's a necessary evil. If you have a car, if you live in a metropolitan area where you don't have to have a car and you can take the metro everywhere, that's great. Then you would want to include that as a travel expense for each of you. But in this case, we're going to go with the average American that has a car, and then they have to have car insurance. I have $129 listed for both James and Mary. This is the average car insurance bill in America. Again, I just Googled it, plug a number in to see what it would look like. When it comes to car insurance, your spouse shouldn't be paying for your expensive car choice. If you have a car that's cheap to insure, that's good for you. If you have a car that's expensive to insure, good for you, but your spouse shouldn't pay for it. One way to overcome this and make it a little more affordable between the two of you is to put the minimal coverage, or PLPD, into the joint bills the same way we're doing with the cell phone. Again, when you notice, the cell phone plan in joint bills covers the plan itself, and then each individual pays for their own phone on that plan. The next number I have on there is $35 for their cell phone. This is, again, I just Googled it, came up with the average cell phone cost. The important thing to remember on this one is you want each individual to be in charge of their own cell phone cost, not the plan. The plan is the communication between the two of you, and both of you have a vested interest in making sure that both of you can communicate, especially in emergencies. However, your spouse shouldn't pay for your expensive cell phone. If you have an expensive cell phone, you can pay for it. If you want to use a $200 cheapo Android, that's your prerogative, and you can save your money and spend it someplace else. If you'll notice, there's Hulu in the joint bills, but James only pays Xbox. Mary has a gym membership, James has a gym membership. They could easily move both of those to the joint column and agree that it's in their best interest for both of them to have a gym membership. In the event that you have a family plan, you could put this in your family bills, but it would have to be something that both people agreed to. In this case, I put Xbox for James because he likes to play video games. Since Mary doesn't play video games, she doesn't pay that portion of that bill. That being said, if James wants a more expensive subscription to anything, whether it's a gym membership or a video game or whatever, that comes out of his individual expenses. If you notice, I put credit card gas and gas CC credit card in both James and Mary. However, the numbers are different. I did this just to point out the differences in choice of vehicle. If one of you drives a diesel truck and the other person drives a Toyota Prius, you're going to have different fuel costs every month. The other person shouldn't pay for your vehicle choice being a gas hog. In terms of gas for the vehicles, a good way to calculate this is to actually start saving your receipts for a month. Do it as long as you can, 6 months, 12 months, as long as you can, and start averaging your bills for the month. So every receipt you have from the gas pumps, you know exactly how much fuel your car is using. Another consideration for fuel is if one person is using the car that is used most for family, then consider sharing fuel costs. If one person's car is always on the go, of course it will burn more fuel. But if both cars are used equally, then no sharing should be required. Another thing to consider for fuel costs is putting the gas on a very small credit card that you can use responsibly, that you only use for fuel, as a method of building credit. We'll cover more credit building strategies later. I also included a $25 a month restaurant bill for each of them that they chip in their portion, and we're going to go into a couple little quirks of some of that stuff that I'll talk about briefly. When it comes to the restaurant, a good rule of thumb is split the bill 50-50, assuming both of you are getting about the same amount of food. If one of you eats like a cow and orders 2 entrees and 3 appetizers, and the other person eats half a salad, then you should probably split it a little differently. But for the most part, it should be split 50-50. One exception to this is if you're buying drinks. If one person is drinking heavily and the other person is not, then probably shouldn't split it. The way me and my wife do it, we split the bill 50-50 for food. Each person buys their own drinks. Another item that would go in this column is if you had student loans. Your student loans belong to you as an individual expense, with the exception of if you are already married when you get your student loans and it was a joint decision for one of you to go back to school, then that could possibly be a joint bill as well. Before I exit this video, I want to show you the math that's used for this. This is very simple addition where each of these individual items are added up at the bottom. So the total is sum, parentheses, and then the highlight the box of everything you're trying to add, and then hit enter, and that gives you the total. We did the same for both James and Mary. That's going to wrap it up for this video. Stick around for the next episode when we get over into how to determine what deposits to make and the actual play money or slush fund that that person has left over. Again, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, thanks for commenting, and we'll see you in the next video.